music plays strong, colors and laughter come join the song from the streets of...
Hola y bienvenidos. I am Roman Reyes, your host for The Bravo Show, where art and music are in perfect harmony. Today, we have such a special guest for you. I mean, we're talking epic. We're talking Lord of the Rings. And we're here in beautiful, where are we at?
New Zealand.
New Zealand, that's right. And
the home of Middle Earth.
That's right. Listen, Gino, we worked together a long time ago, but a lot of folks want to know your background. You know, you're a homeboy from Phoenix, Arizona. Mm-hmm. We want to know what inspired you, but we also want to know if you had any rough spots coming along. So before we get started on that, tell us a little bit about what you've done up to now, Lord of the Rings and so forth, in a capsule, and then we'll get back to that later. But go ahead and tell us what.
Yeah, so I've been working here at a company called Wētā. There's two different companies. There's Wētā FX, which is on the digital side, and then there's also Wētā Workshop that does a lot of the physical stuff, and that's where you worked at.
Right.
And but I've been working over at Wētā FX on the digital side for the past 15 years, I guess. Mm-hmm. And some of the last stuff that we did that we're all quite proud of is the TV show called The Last of Us.
The Last of Us.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that yet, but it's a great show. It's based on a video game, and that's really, really good. And we just finished season 2, which is out now, and it was a lot of fun. It's another kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of story, and a lot of creatures and things, and things don't go so good for a lot of people. But it was a lot of fun to work on. We're quite proud of it.
Tell us about Lord of the Rings.
So how I got here was back in 1998. I was working, and actually it was even before that. It was probably more like 1996. I was working over at a friend's company in Los Angeles called K&B FX, and my friend Howard, who is the B in K&B. And he said he's got these friends from this place called New Zealand who they have a company out here called Wētā. And I'm thinking, hang on, because I'm Mexican, and I'm going, hang on, Wētā means something. I know it means something, and it turns out that Wētā is a bug, a native bug that's out
like
here.
Like a grasshopper.
Kind of like that, but a lot bigger, and it's they're pretty cool looking. But anyways, my friend Howard said these friends of his, Richard Taylor and Tanya Roger, who own the company, are going to be coming out here because they're going to be looking to recruit people to bring them back to work on a remake of King Kong. I said, King Kong? Really? They're going to remake that? It's like, wow. I said, well, who's directing that? And he said, well, Peter Jackson. And it's like, I didn't know who Peter Jackson was at the time. And in fact, he just lives right down the hill down here. And he said, they knew of my work and everything that I've done because I always specialize in airbrushing, as you know, and painting and designing the paint schemes for characters and creatures and doing special makeup effects. And they said that was one of the things that they were kind of lacking at their business here. So they wanted to know if I'd be interested in coming back and teaching their guys on my techniques and stuff like that. And I said, well, yeah, I'm happy to meet with them, but I was pretty happy in LA because I kind of made a name for myself there. And
it was hard getting there. It was hard getting there?
It was, but I happened to be at the right place at the right time. I mean, just to backtrack a little bit, growing up in Phoenix, how I really got my start was I started with a Halloween company called Imagineering down at 59th Avenue in Monroe. And I started with this company through some people that I knew, and I just, that was really my big break because I kind of taught myself how to sculpt masks and how to make the molds and things. And Larry Liff, who's the owner of the company, and he's still around, he's still in Phoenix, and he's like my second dad. Wow. And he said, look, I want to do a latex mask line. And he said, but I'm probably not going to start on it for probably another 6 months or so. And I was just out of high school. I was 18. And I said, I'm kind of...
high school?
Camelback High School. Camelback, yeah. And I went there for 6 years. No. And Larry said, I want to do these masks, but it's not going to be for probably another 6 months or so. I said, I don't really have a job for you except for working out on the production line. And just a little bit of history with Larry. Larry's the one who invented this stuff called vampire blood, which I'll show you a picture of that. The old vampire blood.
That little package.
Yeah, and the teeth, the vampire teeth, And so he invented that stuff back in 1964. It was the year I was born. And this company made all that stuff and all these different makeup kits and everything. And anyways, Larry gave me a tour of the facility, and I'll never forget. We opened up these double doors, and they opened up, and it was this factory, and I felt like Charlie from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And it's like the machine was making the vampire blood, and the evil teeth were over here, and all this. I was in heaven. And he said, "You see, it's pretty." And Larry said, "It's pretty monotonous work. I don't think you're going to like it." And I said, "Yes, I will." Yeah. So he said, "Well, if you want a job, I'll give you a job out there." So I went on. I worked on the line out there for 6 months, making all this stuff.
Now you were looking at some magazines. What magazines did you look at to get inspired?
The magazines. Well, for me, I was always into monsters. I love my monster movies.
Yeah, right. I remember you in class drawing monsters.
Yeah. And do you remember on Saturday mornings there used to be a show called World Beyond?
Oh, definitely.
Channel 5, World Beyond.
Yeah.
And so every Saturday from 10:30 to 12, I'd be glued to the TV. And all my friends knew that if they wanted to play with Gino, they knew that he wouldn't come out to play at that time because he's going to be watching his silly monster movies and stuff. But there was a magazine out there called Famous Monsters. And there was another one called Monster World. And I'll never forget the first magazine that I ever saw. Was in a grocery store. You know how they have the magazines on the racks and stuff, and I was with my mom buying groceries. I looked over on the rack, and there was this it was a monster called the Reptile. The movie was called Reptile. It had this crazy monster snake kind of face. And I saw it. I thought, oh my God! I was looking at it while we're in line. I said, "Oh, Mom, can I have this? Can I buy this?" She goes, "Oh, no, it's terrible. I'm not going to get you that." I said, "Oh, please." So Mom was great. She bought it for me. All the way home, I was reading it from cover to cover, and then inside of it had a lot of black and white pictures of some of the makeup artists that were making up the monsters, and showed some of the processes, and I was just so fascinated with it. And it was after that, that I remember watching the original Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston when that came out, and I loved apes anyway. And when I saw that movie, that just blew my mind. And then I saw this documentary on this gentleman by the name of John Chambers, and John was the one who originally came up with the material, the foam latex rubber, and also came up with this technique of making those what they call appliances, and transforming the actors into the apes and stuff.
Were they latex?
Latex, but it's called foam latex. So it's a latex base, but it comes with like 4 different components, and you mix it into a mixer, and it looks just like meringue. And then you add a gelling agent to it, and they only have a few minutes to work with it to pour it into the molds. And once it's poured into the molds and it sets up, then you have to get it and bake it in the oven for a few hours, and then it comes out as a very soft appliance, And so after that, that was kind of the back history of how I got started with the Halloween company. Then I met this gentleman by the name of Barry Coper, who was friends with Larry, and Barry was a makeup artist in LA at CBS, and Barry kind of took me under his wing because I think I reminded him of himself when he was young, wanted to be a monster maker. And Barry was the one who really introduced me to like the Stan Winstons, the Dick Smith, and Rick Bakers and stuff.
Who doesn't know him?
Yeah, exactly. And so and Barry would always say, he says, someday you got to move out here. And it was my dream to move to Hollywood and make monsters. And so he kept trying, but I was really happy at the Halloween company, and I was a little fish, a big fish in a little pond in Phoenix. I was okay, but I was afraid to be a little fish in a big pond over in LA. So, but I finally had a chance to go out there and work in the industry, and that's when after being there for 15 years, I guess, that's when I got to meet Richard and Tanya, and eventually made my way out here to work on Lord of the Rings, which it was supposed to be King Kong, as I said, but that fell through, and it turned out to be that they had the next project, which was Lord of the Rings.
Fantastic.
And then I remember talking with you, and you were saying that you were going to take a sabbatical.
Right.
And so I thought, and I was looking for painters. And I thought, oh, I know this painter. And I told Richard Tanya, he does airbrush stuff, and he's all right. I said, and so they said, yeah, well, if he wants to come out. And so I asked you, and you came out. You're here for about a year.
Yes.
Making movie history.
Yeah. That was a fantastic experience, and I thank you for that. So tell me, when you were growing up, I know you're saying you loved all the monsters and everything else, but what did you think about as far as, were you going to be an engineer? Did you think of being anything else other than that?
I loved animals.
Right.
And so I thought I was either going to do something in the animal world of either being a vet or something like that, or an animal trainer.
Right.
So I looked into that stuff, but then I found out with being a vet is like almost like being a doctor.
Right.
Because it was way too much school for me and medical stuff. So
it's like I enrolled at ASU under aeronautical technology.
Okay.
And I was working full time, and then I just didn't have the time to do the math. And I said, well, I can always go back to art. So I graduated with that degree in graphic design. So
yeah. So and then art was the other thing, because of my monster movie fetish and everything, that I loved doing the drawings and stuff like that. And I'll never forget one time when I was in probably 6th grade, something like that. I remember they had like the teacher conferences, where the parents come and meet the teachers and stuff. And it was my art teacher, Mrs. Freeman. She's still
Shout
around.
out to Mrs. Freeman.
Yeah. And she goes, oh, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Acevedo. And this is some of the artwork from all the other students, and everybody's doing stuff. And this is what Gino's doing. So, of course, it was monster stuff, and she just had to go, is everything okay at home? It's like, yeah, that's Gino. That's what he does. So, anyway, so I kind of stuck with that, and then, as I said, my big break was starting at Imagineering, and that just opened up a lot of doors for me. And
now, you worked on Freddy Krueger?
I did, with my friend Dave Miller, and he was one of the first people that I'd met in LA that Barry introduced me to. And Dave Miller did the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And then by the time I got out there, he was working on part 5, which is called The Dream Child. And Dave asked, would I like to come help him sculpt Freddy and work on the Freddy's thing? I said, yeah. So that was probably my first big movie. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I used to watch this program. It was a challenge program where special effects people went in there, and they, under a time clock, they were able to give an assignment. Face off, exactly. Yeah. Did you ever consider doing that, or did you?
I did. Yeah, I would have loved to do that. I had some friends that were judges on it and stuff like that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So I thought it would have been a lot of fun, but being down here was just so hard to get away and everything. And I've always been, and I've been here for almost 27 years now.
Oh my goodness.
So it's and it's just never been a dull moment.
So how did you get used to the weather and stuff? Coming from the desert.
Well, I have to admit, I love it out here. I hate the heat. Here I grew up in Phoenix and everything, but out here, the weather, as I say, you can get all 4 seasons in a day.
Right. Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
You need to plan ahead. So if it's a hot, sunny day, make sure you take a warm jacket with you.
Right.
Because we're very close to the Antarctic, and so if we get a southerly, like right now it's a nor'westerly, but when the southerlies come this way, boy, the temperature really drops. Wow. But I love it. I love having that inconsistency of the weather and just never knowing where you're going to go.
Now let me ask you something. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
5 years from now? Hopefully still doing the same thing I'm doing. Yeah, just I love doing a mixture of both the digital stuff and the practical stuff.
Now, what about AI?
That's a dirty word. To be honest, I don't know a lot about the AI stuff, but the stuff I've seen is like it's other artist colleagues and stuff are all very concerned about it and just not very happy about it. Only from the aspect that it's the stuff we're seeing is taking everybody's artwork and bits and pieces and combining it into something like this polished thing that it's just sometimes I have to admit there's some really cool stuff out there I've seen to the point where it's like, damn, why didn't I think of that? But I think that the fact knowing that it's not this one person's work, it's everybody's work, and it's again, I didn't give permission for them to use it, and that's the biggest problem. That's why in the art department at Wētā FX we're not allowed to use it, nor would we, just because the studios are too concerned that if we present a piece of the copyright stuff, if somebody sees a design and says, hey, that's my artwork, I never gave permission on that, and if they can prove it, then the studio gets sued. So I don't know about AI, I don't know what's happening with it, but I have seen some examples where some friends have used it, but they've used their own artwork. A lot of different images of their own artwork and combined everything from that to create something, which I think, well, that's got to be fine because it's your stuff.
That's what I do sometimes. I've done so much artwork. Take it in, put it into a program, run it through there, get an image, run it through another program, get an image, bring it back to Photoshop, and it's all mine. But it gives you that kind of little edge. But sometimes it does look kind of fakey.
There's something about it where it just doesn't have a soul to it, and I think that's a problem sometimes when you see CG characters in the films. They just there's something about with the eyes, and they just don't have a soul.
Well, the thing is, when photography came into being, they said there's no more painting. Why hire a painter when you can just take a picture? But we're still doing both. Same thing with calligraphy, which is handwriting and so forth. So I think there's always being people that want to do it the old way.
Yeah. And I think it's if AI has done anything on the positive side, is that I think it's made people that do traditional artwork, their artwork worth that much more.
Right. I think
Because it's
so,
something that's tangible and it's something that's real that people can hold and feel, and
Now, what as far as working tools, I know you do a lot of airbrush, but you're also doing. Are you using any special tools now as opposed to when we were there?
Yeah. Photoshop. Photoshop has just been an amazing tool to have, and it's great because I love the aspect of still doing the traditional pen and pencil and that kind of stuff. And I know when I've done talks as well, it's like you talk to these young kids, it's like, not everybody in here can afford a computer and Photoshop and stuff, but everybody in here can afford a pencil and a piece of paper.
Right, exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's still great stuff to do. Yeah. And if you use the Photoshop stuff, it's nice to take that sketch, scan it, and take it into Photoshop as another tool, an advancing tool to be able to do things with it. The Photoshop is a great program for us in the film industry to be able to use to show to a director. Right. And because directors will always say, well, that's a great, I like it, I like the character, but can you make the nose a bit smaller? And if you've done it as a painting, it's like, I can't, you almost got to start over.
Right,
but the gift with Photoshop is that, of course, you do your layers and stuff, and it's easy to change.
Well, as I was teaching there in computer scheme intervene, I would take students' work and say, okay, now perhaps if you were trying to use a different color scheme, it would look something like this, and so forth. So you have better grasp of things that you can do, things that you can improve with it. Yeah.
But it's the one thing that I remember looking at a lot of young people's portfolios and stuff, and I remember seeing this one kid's portfolio, and it was a beautiful illustration of a creature thing. And I said, so how'd you do this? He said, well, I painted it. And it's like, I don't know if you can actually say that you painted it, because what you're saying, what I think is painting is different than what you've done.
Right, exactly.
You've done it digitally. When I think what you've done is, you've done a great job at making putting all these images together and putting them all together, and done a beautiful job of blending things. But I can see that you use like maybe some elephant skin here, a rhino horn here, and this kind of. And he goes, I said, okay.
So tell me something a little bit about your life here. Obviously, we're sitting here looking at the bay. You have an excellent, job you like. What do you think would make it better, or what do you think you want to be able to aspire more to?
I think as I'm getting older, I think what I'm enjoying doing more is having the ability to give back. Because I had a lot of great breaks and stuff to get to where I am, and I think it's really important for all of us to be able to give back, to the younger generation, and even the older generation to give to.
Let me tell you, if somebody's out there looking and they're interested in pursuing something like like you're doing, what advice would you give to them?
Well, the advantage that you got now is you've got the internet with stuff, and something I didn't have, so everything that I learned was pretty much just self-taught in torturing my friends.
Right, exactly.
But
and your teachers.
And but you've got YouTube to be able to look stuff up, and if you want to get into the prosthetics side of things, which is cool and a lot of fun to do, but the materials and stuff are very expensive. So, and there's a lot of great schools out there, but they're very expensive as well. So I would suggest, and I suggest to everybody that's out there, if you're wanting to get into the field, is to get some materials and play around with it, and go on YouTube, and you can do some testing and that kind of stuff, just to see if this is really, if it's really you, if it's really if this is something you really want to do, before you invest all this money into into all this other stuff. And then if it is something you really want to do, then pursue it that way. Follow these courses and stuff online. There's some great books you can get out there, and it's just the main thing is practice. Right. Practice. Yeah.
No. Also, one thing that when I went to Wētā Workshop today, as a tour, and they introduced a lot of new things that were not there when we were there, or when I was there. And so, do you foresee any more new innovations? For example, when I was there, the digital printing was new, and now it has flourished. Do you see that coming into play?
Definitely, yeah. I've seen some amazing stuff now where a lot of people are And ZBrush is one of the programs that's used for a lot of digital sculpting. And what they're doing is that they're not only sculpting a figure or a character, but also sculpting a mold. They can make a mold from that. So having 3D printed molds, as opposed to the old traditional way of making them out of plaster or fiberglass or resin or something. And the great thing about that is like the accuracy is just really incredible. You know, it's you know, computer perfect. You know. So that kind of stuff I see is really something that's fairly new, that's really been taken over a lot of stuff, you know.
Tell me, when I was there, I was astonished by the what do you call the cities and the mountains that were miniatures. They were large miniatures.
Bigatures.
Bigatures. Yeah, exactly. Tell us a little bit about that. How does that transpire?
Well, I'm back on Lord of the Rings. They decided to do a lot of these miniatures that way, and they gave them the name bigatures because that's exactly what they were. They were huge. They were massive. And the reason why they built them so big was to be able to get a lot of that, you know, infinite detail that's in them, because, you know, they had the scrutiny of a camera coming by and capturing all that detail, which is it needed to be that detail. And that stuff, to this day, I mean, we watched the films recently, and all that stuff just holds up so well. And it's because it's like it's all made by hands, and so it has the human imperfections and everything that's there that makes it look so real. A lot of times when it's done with a computer and stuff, they have to go back in and take out the perfection, the perfectness of it, and add those little imperfections into it, you know, to make it look real.
Now, did you have anything to do with the Hobbiton? That's the touristy thing?
No, and in fact, I hadn't been out there until just recently, not long ago, because all the characters that I was working on, doing makeups and stuff, none of them needed to be there at Hobbiton and stuff. So I didn't get to go there until recently. It was just a couple of years ago. I had to go do a makeup on Stephen Colbert.
Oh, that's right.
They did a special on him, and
I saw that one.
And so, but I finally got to see Hobbiton after all these years. It was pretty amazing.
Well, you know, we'd like to take a little break and then.
Vamos! Dance to the rhythm, feel the heat. The Bravo show is here, it can't be beat. In the heart of the city, the music plays strong. Colors and laughter, come join the song from the streets of Tijuana.